my dad and my brother would go for Friday prayer, and there would be announcements for beheadings and amputations after the prayer every Friday.
You weren't saved in Britain, you were saved by going Saudi.
Yeah.
You're saved by going Saudi.
How ironic is that? And I remember my grandfather said to me, if I was your father, I would never let you do what your dad has just allowed you to do. He was insanely radicalized while he was here. Like my mum, obviously I wasn't born, but my mum was telling me that he wouldn't even like look her in the eye when he would talk to her. He'd like look down. You got your passport in your hand? I was like, yeah. He was like, do not, just put your foot down and make your way to the airport where these stupid charges don't apply.
In a real world that we're in, you are risking your life.
Yeah. It's disgustingly oppressive towards women, and it's so vague that it will allow for, it's all encompassing. Like it's a catch-all for women. You're oppressed, there's no way out, and all of these things, like what was put on me, is justified, very much so by the guy himself.
Information covered up, censorship, corruption. The mainstream media have proven itself to be untrustworthy. I'm here to give a platform for debate, for truth, for open discussion. I'm introducing you to my podcast, Silenced with Tommy Robinson.
Who exactly is Tommy Robinson, or Stephen Yaxley-Lane?
With the English Defence League, the EDL.
The problem is with Islamic
The English far-right Islamophobic activists.
Since then, there's been organised protests across the country in London, Manchester, Leeds. People in their thousands are marching for Robinson's cause.
There is no such thing in this country as a Muslim.
Free Tommy Robinson!
Welcome to my latest edition of my podcast, Silenced, where I'm joined with a guest who I believe is brave and courageous and risking their life, which we'll get onto. That is Nuriyah. So Nuriyah, thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me.
I've seen your, not your go-to, but you're described as ex-Muslim commentator. Mm-hmm. So I'd like to just start, I want to get onto the whole Islam thing, your upbringing in Islam, but find out more about you first, if that's all right.
Yeah, sure. So I'm third generation British. I was a third generation British Muslim. So I was born and brought up in London, left here when I was 9, but I was brought up in a kind of conservative to liberal, I guess, Sunni Muslim household.
Okay.
So yeah, I did primary schooling here, did religious education at RE as part of that, was very much like loving Islam, repping it to the school and things like that. And yeah, my granddad was an imam of the local mosque as well, so he held the key.
Okay. And
he would open the mosque for the earliest morning prayer, and there'd be like Quran recital competitions and all of these things around the mosque that I would be heavily involved in. And I'd go to Quran classes every day as well after school. Again, a lot of indoctrination there. I started to wear the hijab at 9 years old based on what my Quran teacher told me.
And why at 9 years old? Why would your Quran teacher why not at 8 and why at 9?
There's 9 is a special age for, I guess, a girl in Islam, and it's when things really like start to get serious and kick off. You're meant to take your like conservatism, modesty, all of these things very seriously. And obviously it alludes to, I think anyway, something very basic in the hadith, which is Prophet Muhammad's consummation of his marriage to Aisha, his child bride.
So you'd say it was because at that point you were coming from a child to a woman in their view?
In their view, yeah, Islamically.
In Islam's eyes, Islamically, 8 you're a child. When you get to 9, you're developing into a woman at 9. And that's why you had to wear the hijab.
Yeah, if that's an age where alleged prophet can consummate a marriage with somebody, then yeah, the rest of the Muslims should take that age as seriously.
And where were your family from?
Originally from Pakistan.
Whereabouts in Pakistan?
Lahore.
Lahore, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and you're growing up, did you say until 9?
Yes.
What, and then you went somewhere else?
Yeah, so at 9, when I started to wear the hijab and things like that, I did for a while, and then I got interested in sports. So I took the hijab off, and then almost immediately we moved to Saudi Arabia. So we relocated for my father's job at the time. And yeah, so
you went to Saudi Arabia at 9. Okay, so you was growing up in London at 9. Was you in a total Islamic school or not?
No, I was in a like local primary school. Nothing special, just our local school. Part of just all I would do was participate in RE. But no, the Islamic education was separate after school.
Okay. And at 9 years old, your family have moved to Saudi Arabia. How long did you live in Saudi Arabia?
Till I was 16. So I grew up, like a large portion of my life I spent in Saudi Arabia,
wow.
in the holy land of Islam.
Yeah, totally. I didn't know that.
Yeah, no, it was such an eye-opening experience in so many ways. It's shaped who I am in so many ways.
Why? What was it like moving from London to Saudi Arabia?
Funnily enough, incredible. Incredible for a young child. I guess I'm speaking also from a perspective where you go as an expat, so you go as a British expat and you're staying in a compound. This is like, basically, it's a mini America or a mini international, I guess, community within Saudi Arabia. So the rules of Saudi Arabia don't apply
Inside
in
those
that
walls.
compound. Outside of those walls, you have all of, the Wahhabi Saudi Arabia play out in front of you, the call to prayer, the abayas, all of those things. But also, thankfully, because I went to a British international school, it was co-ed. So, gender mixing was normal. We had discos. But again, it was like being in a school in England. But why I say it opened my eyes a lot was because, again, how embedded like Islam was in Saudi. Obviously, they follow the Wahhabi Islam, and at the time that I was there, now this has been watered down a lot, but when I was there, they had the Mutawwa, which is the Islamic police, the religious police, and they would enforce Sharia in daily life. So if my mum was at the supermarket shopping and she was there with her like 2 English friends, they didn't have their head covered, and the Mutawwa would come and say to them, "You're in our country, you need to cover your head." And they even rebuked him like once and said, "We don't believe in Islam and we're not Muslim." And he said, "It doesn't matter, you're in Saudi Arabia, our rules apply." And then they had to, my mom told me, they both put on their headscarf and complied. So that was the big thing as well. They would stop men who weren't like stopping their cars on the side of the road to go and pray at prayer time. These little things of these like encroaching onto, daily life. My dad and my brother would go for Friday prayer, and there would be announcements for beheadings and amputations after the prayer every Friday. And Riyadh, because we lived in Jeddah, which is still a bit more of a liberal-ish city, if you can call it that, but Riyadh is intense. So they had this whole square, which is called Chop Chop Square, which is renowned for...
Chop Square.
Yeah, literally, that's what the expats called it.
Chop Square. How religious were your mum? Was your mum and dad? So, because if your granddad's obviously super religious, if he's an imam at a mosque in London, you moved away with your mum and dad, was there a bit more freedom through your mum and dad, or are they strict?
So they were born here, and then they obviously grew up here, so they had really like mixed with, I guess, British culture enough to not, they don't pray 5 times a day. I would say that they are very much like believers, but they weren't as, practicing in that sense. Like even when I wore hijab, this never usually happens, but I was discouraged like to wear it. They told me to take it off.
By mum and dad?
Yeah, they said, "You're
cool.
too young, like what are you doing?" I just wanted to get to heaven or do whatever God told me to do. So I was doing it off my own accord. They were actually happy when I took it off, which obviously is never usually the case. So yeah, you can tell that they're a bit more like liberal in their outlooks. But going to Saudi Arabia, spending time in the Middle East, being surrounded by all these other cultures, they got more and more disassociated from my grandparents here, who were quite conservative and religious. So as a family, we would travel the world, and they can see how intense Islam can be. So they're rebelling in their own ways as well. And then obviously 9/11 happened, which kind of shook us all to the core as well.
Where was you when 9/11 happened?
In Saudi Arabia.
Okay.
Yeah, and it was so bad, Tommy, because like even non-Muslim neighbors of ours, they would say, "Can you teach us?" Because we lived in a very heavily American compound as well, so we were a target after that. We were on high alert because there was a lot of American military there who would live there, because we're connected to Raytheon as well. So everyone had to get like bulletproof windows, and every company that somebody worked for, they had intelligence of what was going on. But non-Muslim families would come and say, "Can you teach us the Shahada or the Kalma?" I was like,
why'd they want that? In case someone come in?
In case there was...
So they could say they're Muslim?
Yeah, and they put like, our neighbors were from New Zealand. They actually put like a Allah and Muhammad like little decoration outside their house, as if like terrorists are going to come and check. But I mean, it's just indiscriminate when it happens. But that's the level of fear. We started having terrorist drills in school. We were getting ready for the worst.
Do you know they do terrorist drills now in school?
Do they?
They lock the kids under the tables.
Oh wow, yeah.
I
That's
thought it was just my kids' school. So my kids come home and said, "Dad, like this has happened. We've all had to get under the tables. All the doors have been shut. We've all had to keep quiet." And I went up to school. Said, "Is this because of me?" And I said, "No, that's now that's now across the board in the country. They practice lockdowns."
Wow.
They just call it a lockdown. They won't say it's because of jihad. They'll just say it's an emergency lockdown. Okay, so you're there. So you're not wearing the hijab from 9.
No.
And then you're living quite freely in Saudi as such. In the school you was in, was it mixed as
Yeah,
well?
mixed, every nationality. And that's actually what kind of it didn't shake my faith, but it made me think that Islam is really like, what's up with the Islam that we follow? It's so rigid and intense, because I met people from various Islamic, different strands of Islam. So there was like Lebanese friends I had who were Druze, which is like, it's kind of like Christianity and Islam, it's kind of infused. And you know, they're able to like enjoy life a bit more, they're able to drink, it's kind of a mishmash of both. And I was like, why do we follow the one that just sucks the joy out of life? It's so intense, all of this. So this exposure to other cultures and other religions, and I met Shias for the first time. I didn't know that they existed. And again, in Saudi Arabia, they weren't able to say their last names and come to the same mosques as Sunnis were. They have to live like almost underground, because Saudis don't like Shias at all. So even Shia friends of mine in school, they wouldn't openly discuss that they were Shia.
Mad.
Yeah.
And then, how did you do at school? What did you study at school?
So I did the International Baccalaureate. It was a British school, but they do the Swiss curriculum.
Yep.
Which was also weird, because you'd think we're doing the British and Swiss curriculum.
You speak very well as well.
Oh, thank you.
Is that from out there?
I guess so, yeah. I guess it's the schooling. I guess they did something right.
Is it a private school out there? Yeah, obviously.
It's akin to a private school here, I'd say.
Okay.
Yeah, the standards are quite high for the schools out there, because Saudi Arabia is considered a hardship zone. Nobody in their right mind is going to want to go from London to Saudi Arabia. So they make the schools really good. They offer expats a great package. You get 4 flights home, business class back to your country, because it's such a hardship zone.
Yeah,
I mean, for a normal person, you don't have cinemas. You can't access bars. There's nothing to do. There's no especially when I was there. Now Saudi Arabia is opening up more and more, but it was very much like you sacrifice all of your pleasures and like
so they have to make it worth the employees' while.
Exactly,
Giving them
incentivized.
great education and things like that.
Yeah, all paid for.
All paid for. How did you qualify at school? What did you leave with?
So it's the equivalent of, I guess, like A's. A star,
got
AA, yeah, because the uni I applied to had very high standards to get in.
Where was the uni?
So these Russell groups.
Where's that?
It's in central London. It's part of University of London.
Okay,
So you've got
yeah.
LSE, UCL, SOAS,
Okay.
I think Queen Mary, they're all.
Okay, so you left. And is that when you left Saudi Arabia to come back to London when you finished school?
No, so I went to Dubai for 2 years, did my last 2 years of schooling in Dubai. That's when and then I came back at 18 for university.
And when you went to Dubai, what was that for? Just your last 2 years of schooling? That's where
My dad's job moved him to Dubai.
moved him to Dubai.
Yeah.
Okay. How was that, breaking up with the friend? Okay, so if you've got all your friends at 16, you've been in the school for years, and then you picked up and moved to Dubai.
It was awful. I honestly, we cried, and we were begging our dad to just stay 2 more years
How
in
many
Saudi.
children? You?
We're 4.
Okay. All girls, boys?
3 girls, 1 boy.
So, because you're uplifting them. How old were you at that time? 16?
Yeah.
What about your brothers and sisters? How old were they?
They were 14 and 13.
Yeah, that's because I'm only thinking of my kids now. If I tried to move them all out of their life and move them totally, they'd be gutted.
Yeah, oh my God, it's heart-wrenching. It's heart-wrenching. And then you're not happy no matter where you go, no matter how good it is, because you're still like, why did you yank me out?
Missing your mates.
Yeah, absolutely.
You've been with for years. So then you put into Dubai. You put into Dubai. You're into Dubai, and what, you start a new school?
Yeah, new
Was
school.
Dubai a lot better? A lot more free?
A lot better. I could start learning to drive. I didn't have to wear an abaya. I could go on a...
Because women can't drive in Saudi. No, they couldn't.
They couldn't at the time.
Now they can with permission.
Now they can, yes.
Permission? Or?
I think it should be... I think the permission element should be waived as well, but
Okay.
in practice, yeah, it's probably still there.
So you've gone to Dubai. You're at a new school with your brothers and sisters. Living in what sort of area there?
Very nice by the beach in Jumeirah.
Okay.
Really, really nice life. Very cushy. Yeah, it was glorious. And again, it was the perfect blend of, for me, in my eyes, East meets West. And I was getting ready to come back to London for uni anyway, so I was like, this is the perfect transition, because Saudi warps your reality a bit.
Yeah,
whereas Dubai was a bit more like, you can intermingle with boys, you can go out, people were,
Everyone goes there to party.
Yeah, exactly. Booze is a lot more readily available. You can sneak into clubs, fake IDs. All of these things are now coming to the forefront. You're a normal-ish teenager.
Yeah.
So it was a lot better.
And then you stayed there for 2 years, left school and applied for uni in London.
Yes.
Come to live with, when you come back to London, who'd you come to live with?
I tried to live at home with my
With granddad?
grandparents.
I was just thinking this.
It was...
Especially you must have been, from the girl you would have been if you stayed in that school in London, wearing the hijab at 9, with the influence of your granddad and the mosque, to the girl you probably then become, even though you've been in Saudi and then Dubai, with a bit of freedom. You've come back. What's your granddad's opinion when you've come back?
Yeah, absolutely. Like because I couldn't even stay late at uni to go out. I would actually say like, there's somebody coming to give a talk or something, just to be able to have part of the student experience, you know, where like after lectures or hang out in the student union. And they would think that because I'm saying that there's lectures and things because I want to actually be part of this student, like universities are a diverse experience. They thought I'd gone off the rails, obviously. Like I couldn't keep up this commuting and coming home late and, you know, trying to live a double life. So eventually I wrote a long-winded email to my dad saying all the reasons that I can't live here and how much the uni experience I'm missing. And he just said, okay. And again, I'm so grateful. They understand. And he actually put me in the thick of it. And I was able to stay in dorms and actually get the full experience for university, because they just think you're a lost cause if you start even giving them thoughts that you're potentially hanging out with boys, or you're drinking, or you're out clubbing. And that is there is no scope for that. And I remember my grandfather said to me, if I was your father, I would never let you do what your dad has just allowed you to do. But I had to live my life, so I went.
Just at this time, when you're even Saudi to Dubai, coming home, you still identifying as a Muslim?
Yeah, very much.
Still going mosque?
No. So I was
Do women go mosque?
Sorry?
Do women go mosque?
They do, but not as much as men. They go more in like in Ramadan, and you know, some of them go for like I guess in the Pakistani society here anyway, we've got something called a dars, which is not, so instead of going to the mosque like this is what my grandma used to do, all of them in the community, all of the like Muslim women and elders, they would have somebody's house dedicated to all meet up, and then they kind of like talk about hadiths and the Prophet's life and pray and all of that kind of jazz. That's their version of...
Fucking awful.
But Tommy, just on your point, what you said it's so poignant, because if I hadn't left London and I was wearing hijab at 9 and I kept going to that same mosque, which is still there and it's getting even more funding, and I had been under the influence of my grandfather, I would have literally been Shamima Begum.
Shamima Begum?
I was on course to, I mean, that was like the natural trajectory.
Wow.
I mean, not 100%, but the possibility is there.
The mindset, you'd have been an extreme Muslim follower of Islam, dedicated to the cause. Can you tell me, any of the children that you were friends with at 9, when you come back, did you meet up with any of them? Did you see any of them?
I mean, I've seen them on the street walk past, but they're all hijabi now and more so. And I mean, there was a hi bye, but I have nothing to say, like nothing in common, and absolutely nothing in common. That's why I moved away.
It sounds like your dad relocating you for education with work in Saudi may have saved you.
Absolutely. I think it saved my entire family.
You weren't saved in Britain, you were saved by going Saudi. You're saved by going Saudi.
How ironic is that?
You're saved
by going to God's house.
saved from Islam by going to Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
Mental, but in London you'd have been absolutely in trouble.
Yeah, the state of things.
Okay, so you've come back at university. What did you study at university?
Law and economics.
Okay.
Islamic law as well as a module.
Did
just
you?
for shits and gigs, yeah.
Did you?
No, because I actually cared for it, and my plan was to go back to the Middle East once I'd graduated. That's how much I didn't like London or living here. Life was so hard compared to in Dubai, when you've got, like, I'm sorry, it's an easier life. The sun shines. There's, you know, everything's open 24/7. It's not like here. Yeah. And they still have that lifestyle where you can, you know, you have drivers, you've got maids, you've got all of that. It's not frowned upon there. So people, this is why so many people go, right?
Go in,
yeah, work hard, play hard.
And there's no crime.
There's no what, sorry?
There's no crime.
There is petty crime.
Compared to London?
No, not hardly. And it's safer. I can walk back on the streets in Dubai at like 3 a.m. and I wouldn't be as scared as I would be here. So there are those little
and you see, when you've come out of university, what qualifications did you get, if you mind me asking?
I got a 2-1 with honours, yeah. Okay. I wasn't gearing up for a first. I wanted to enjoy uni.
Yeah, you had a good time.
I wanted to have a good time, yeah.
And then what did you do for work?
Well, I did actually move back to Dubai right after university. And I worked with my dad for a while.
Do you mind if I ask what your dad does?
Sorry?
Do you mind if I ask what your dad does?
When he was, when we moved to Saudi, he was working for Mars, the chocolate company.
Okay. Did he have a high job, high paying job?
Yeah, it was a great package, yeah.
Okay.
So then we had to move to Dubai as well because their head office moved to Dubai. And he was in charge of like logistics and supply chain at the time. So we were like moving around quite a bit as well. And then he had the chance to like manage Pakistan, which he said he would do from Dubai. So he obviously didn't want to. Yeah, good choice, exactly. He saved all of our lives a bit longer in Dubai.
Otherwise you'd have been back in Pakistan.
No, I mean, I don't think we would have gone with. We would say just do trips and come back here, keep our base in Dubai at least. He's also not been back many times. Obviously, he struggles with certain elements of it.
Of what?
I guess it's just the hardships then, like the electricity going every 2 hours and that kind
he's
of
accustomed to a good life after a successful career.
I think so, yeah.
Well, your dad, just like if your granddad, obviously, he was super religious, he's obviously done well with your dad. Your dad's obviously been successful.
I think, honestly, Tommy, it was that generation. My dad, all his brothers as well, like I said, they grew up in the thick of being that second generation immigrant experience, like, are we British, are we Pakistani, what's this new British Pakistani identity, right? And then you've got like, they grew up in a very, I mean, the immigrant experience based in like Southall, which was like the melting point of like all this Asian hotspot. And then you had like some kind of gang rivalries as well playing out. And then you've got the skinheads as well at the time. So they've like lived through all of this and they were they had a different outlook on life. You know, everyone's got their vices. And in Islam, you're not allowed to gamble, you can't drink, you can't do all these things, but everyone's
they grew up doing all of it.
Everyone's doing things to certain degrees, of course, yes.
So do you think that generation who worked hard, were they all successful, his brothers?
No, not at all, not at all. Yeah, one of my uncles actually went to fight in Afghanistan. And
what, in the conflict?
Yeah.
For the Taliban?
For the Taliban, yeah. And I mean, again, he didn't go to university. My dad was the only one that went to university. So
your uncle, how many brothers did your dad have?
3.
So your uncle, the son of the Imam in London, when the conflict hit off, is that with Russia in Afghanistan, not with America?
No.
Okay, when it hit off with Russia. But it was being celebrated for Muslims to go and fight against fight in Afghanistan. Even for British Muslims, we were supporting it, right, as a country?
Yeah.
So he went out to fight his jihad against the Soviet.
Yeah. And he was, again...
What was the word like in your family at that time? If your uncle's going to fight, was it celebrated? Was it?
Well, again, this is why I think, again, we're lucky because my grandma actually tried really hard to get him back here. And eventually she did. And she like wrote to someone who went and got him and brought him back to London, like forcefully in a way. Because he was insanely radicalized while he was here. Like my mum, obviously I wasn't born, but my mum was telling me that he wouldn't even like look her in the eye when he would talk to her. He'd like look down and...
What year was this?
I can't remember what year it was exactly.
Roughly. 20 years ago?
This is when my dad would have left university. Yeah, about 20... I don't know, when did my parents go to university? In like the 90s, early 90s, mid 90s.
In the early 90s, you've got Muslim men in London insanely radicalised at that point, even from their mum's point of view.
Yes.
Probably from your granddad's mosque.
No, also I think that was separate in a way. That was happening at home. But my dad tells me as well, like when he was at university, and I remember the advice they gave me before I was going to university, and they, again, so strange coming from my parents, but they said, whatever you do, don't join the Islamic Society. And I said, okay, why? Yeah, and my dad was just like, just don't, because like it's just join any society, just don't join that one. Join the Pakistani one if you want, join this, join that. And he had been telling me, like, obviously in the days of Anjum Chaudhry and stuff, they would go to their universities and they would radicalize these young men. They would literally show them like propaganda, like videos of Muslims being killed and then say, answer the call for jihad. And my dad said, I was so close to getting, you're a young lad, you know, testosterone, you're seeing your brothers and sisters being killed. They're riling you up. This was like after you go to the mosque, you read Jummah, the Friday prayer with everybody collectively. Then they come to you, they show you these videos, they talk to you. There's a bunch of men in a room and they're like literally recruiting. And my dad said if I didn't have interest in snooker and some other things in cricket, I would have
gone down that path.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you remember the Stockholm bomber? He went from Luton and blew himself up. He's an Iraqi. So he come to Luton for university and he was a good natured, lovely Muslim guy.
Yeah.
He come and got radicalised on campus by Al-Mujahideen on campus.
Oh my God.
Who radicalised him, and he went and blew himself up in Sweden. That's the same situation. They've been these groups were operating in universities unchallenged for decades. Yeah. So your dad escaped that, luckily. I'm just wondering what the rest of your family outlook is. So you've got uncles that are, would you say, radical still now?
Again, this is
Do you see them?
No, I don't, but it's just because I haven't been living in that area. But again, came back and was the complete opposite. Went off to Tanzania, I think.
Who, the uncle?
Had a hippie life, yeah.
Oh wow!
And now he's come back and is just kind of, maybe plateaued. And no, another uncle is completely non-religious, and he basically changed his name as well. He didn't even want Khan as a surname anymore. So he was
For what reason? Because he felt it held him back because of racism, or because he didn't want association with the Islamic?
I think there's both, because he says, I'm not religious at all. I don't buy into any of this. I'll never go to Mecca. I'll never do the pilgrimage. But also he wants to be a successful businessman. And he thinks if people see Khan, then there'll already be, some kind of prejudice attached to that. So yeah, I think it's a bit of both for him.
Okay.
Whereas my dad named my brother one of the really Islamically powerful name instead.
What's his name?
Saifullah, the sword of Allah.
So you're safe, because you know the main radical in Luton, no?
Yeah.
Saif al-Islam, sword of Islam.
Saif al-Islam, sword of Islam. Powerful stuff.
Okay. Okay, I just want to understand the dynamic I'm just trying to understand the dynamic, what it's like for you being in that family. You come back, you've gone to university, you've qualified, you then go back to Dubai, you say?
Yeah.
And working as what?
So I worked with my dad for a bit, and then I worked for actually a British NGO that was based out there. But it was working with celebrities around the world who would, do some kind of art for royalties. So nothing really in Dubai was getting my attention, because it's very much oil and gas or property or these kind of industries, which obviously after studying at SOAS, I had a bit more of a humanitarian outlook. And Dubai didn't have any employment opportunities for that, really. So I struggled with that side of things. And yeah, again, I got stuck into the Dubai bubble of just, you're out of reality. People just there, if you have a decent life, all you think about is where's the next nice restaurant we're going to, or what's the new Michelin star restaurant that's opened. You're so detached from reality, but you understand that you can't speak your mind. So I couldn't even on WhatsApp and stuff, you can't banter about things, you can't.
Is it like that in Dubai then as well?
Absolutely.
Because people have this facade now with Dubai that it's this amazing, beautiful place and everything's perfect. And to be honest, I hear the argument now that's thrown. Well, look at the crime in London. Look at the mess of London. None of this is going on in Dubai. Dubai is a beautiful, peaceful place that people can go live in under security. And they end up wanting the Islamic way, in comparison.
Yeah.
But it's not free?
No. That's a veneer. As soon as it comes off, you can get in trouble in Dubai for writing the F word on WhatsApp to somebody. How do they monitor
Islam in Dubai?
How do they monitor?
How do they monitor Islam? How is it with regards to, could you criticise Islam?
Not publicly. If you were to, you wouldn't be clever if you were to do that on any kind of social, virtual medium at all.
I was in Dubai and Qatar when I was leading the English Defence League. I was thinking, what am I doing? I was logging in the computer in the hotel. I was logging in the computer in the hotel when I was in Qatar. I was in Qatar going on the English Defence League Facebook group at the time.
You're braver than me. I hope you had VPN.
Man. I went to Dubai 3 times.
Oh my God.
I was at Jumeirah Beach.
Yeah. It's a nice beach, isn't it?
Yeah, it's beautiful, man.
Yeah.
It was beautiful. Was I there when Madeline, I can remember I was in that hotel when Madeline McCann got went missing.
Oh my God.
I remember it, yeah. But, okay, so you're struggling with a purpose, are you, in Dubai?
Yeah.
At that time?
Yeah, I was. So I was traveling a lot, and then obviously my parents again were moving to Malaysia. So
with work again?
With work again, yeah.
Brother and sister have to go there and all? Were any of them young enough to get dragged along?
Brother and sister were at uni, but the little one had to go with. Yeah,
man.
So yeah, I know. She's like, every time they say, oh, we need to talk, she's like, don't. I know what it is. Man. Where are we going now? But again, it shaped her amazingly, because I can actually, she can go and kind of adapt to any culture
and any people.
Yeah. And
she's free?
She's free, yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So you're struggling. Did you come back to London? Did you?
No, so actually this is I guess in hindsight, it's great what happened, but this was a low point in my life because my parents didn't want me to stay in Dubai and not be married because...
How old was you?
21, 22?
How old are you now?
32.
Okay, well.
Yeah, so they didn't want me to stay there unmarried because it's not right, and a girl can't be out and dating and all this. It's not part of our culture or religion. So they said either come to Malaysia or you need to do a nikah, which is like an Islamic marriage, with this guy that I'd just been introduced to and we were seeing. So
who was the guy? Who introduced you to him?
One of my old high school friends.
Okay, so you'd been seeing him anyway?
Yeah, but...
Yourself, so you chose him?
Yeah.
It
wasn't...
You're dating some dude?
Yeah.
Where's he from?
He was originally from Pakistan, but he was born and brought up in Dubai.
Okay.
So, so then they wanted me to do an Islamic marriage, which obviously I didn't really want to do, but then I thought that's the only way that even if I was to go to Malaysia, like that I can have visits back to Dubai or whatever, I can still travel. So then they were like, no, you shouldn't do an Islamic marriage because it looks like something's gone wrong or that you're running away. So let's do a full, whole big wedding so that people know that this is, done the right way and it's the real deal. So I did that.
You got married to him?
Yeah, I did.
Did you want to get married to him, or was it just for this purpose?
No, I was far too young, and I hadn't dated my fair share of men that I wanted to. I was, nowhere ready to.
Did he want to get married? Was he privy to these conversations, or was his mum and dad sorting all that?
No, he was pushing for it.
Oh, he was pushing.
He was definitely pushing for it. Again, now in hindsight, I also think there was an element of them trying to get an English passport secured in a way.
Oh, his family.
Yeah.
Because he marries you, bang. Your family is successful.
Thank God the process is not that simple anymore. But yeah, I think
anymore.
that was the
It was back then, though, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was, and that's why I was not bringing him to London on any trips, because obviously it gets easier the more times he visited, and I would just come by myself, or I'd go to Malaysia to see my parents. Obviously, because the marriage was insufferable, very much like...
Why?
Because, again, that's why I think there was this hidden agenda for the passport thing, because after the honeymoon, the switch was just so...
When how he was?
Yeah. It was like a completely different person. But I think there was also like some underlying mental health, issues there that they hadn't told me about, because when I questioned his sister and his parents, they realized like I had clocked onto something, and that's when I realized something is really...
How long was you seeing him, if you don't mind me asking? Before the marriage?
About 8 months.
Okay, so when you say seeing him, was you living with him?
No.
Is that because mum and dad wouldn't have approved, or could you have been living with him?
No. You're not even allowed to step into the house.
In Dubai?
Yeah.
Okay, so you haven't lived together?
No.
You're seeing each other, what, for a meal here and there?
Yeah. Like a cup of tea.
Do you mind if I ask if you consummated that marriage before? Were you in a sexual relationship before the marriage?
Yeah.
Okay, you was. Well, he wasn't a good Muslim then, was he?
No.
Naughty boy.
Who is? No.
No, okay. Would you say a lot of Muslims are doing that?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I mean, we know which hotels don't check. We know where to go.
Dubai.
As a teenager, you know how to navigate.
You find out your way around it.
Absolutely.
Okay, so then you're marrying. Was he nice up until the marriage then? Was he a nice guy?
Yeah. Obviously, that front
how old
was working.
He? If you were 21, how old was he?
He was the same age, or a year older.
Was he working? Was he successful? Intelligent?
Again, just like living off daddy's money kind of thing. So just throwing around like wealth and...
Oh, they were a wealthy family?
Yeah, and he would kind of want to live beyond his means as well. So I think that's where we were mismatched, as he would think we should take business class tickets and stuff. And I thought you should do something to at least deserve that. Okay. So there was a lot of issues there as well, and I'd keep coming back to London and just like having time away.
You'd keep escaping?
Yeah, a lot.
Home.
Like I was with him for about a year and a half. I think I took maybe 7 trips and maybe spent like 5-6 months actually with him.
Did you tell your parents you weren't happy at that time?
Not for a long time, because as you said, like I thought this was on me because it was my decision. And in our culture, religion, a bit of both.
Was it your decision though?
I mean, no, that's what I think now. Exactly. I mean, it's ridiculous that I had to do that.
At the time, as a Muslim girl, you're thinking, I've married him, it's my decision, I made this decision.
And you're told you can't do whatever you want as a woman, but do it once you're married, and do it from your husband's house, and do it under... Like, you can't do anything before that. If you want your freedom, if you want to travel, you have to do it.
Once you're married?
Yes.
But that's the wrong way round.
Absolutely.
You're meant to do everything else, and when you get married, stay at home.
Exactly.
And your husband travels. Okay. So you're flying back to England. How does it work as a young Muslim lady in that situation? And actually, I want to know, when you say he turned, what was he like?
Getting very like, so I didn't really, I'd never had any understanding of what like, you know, emotional abuse and things like that were.
Yeah.
But he was starting to like take on very creepy behavior that I just would think to myself, this isn't normal. Like, you know, taking on certain personalities of like, we were watching House of Cards or like a show, he would take on, I was watching Mad Men at one point, he would start acting like the main character of that show, Don Draper. And when we go out to eat, he would order a drink in the way that Don Draper would order the drink. And I was like, what is wrong with this man?
Sounds pretty funny.
I know.
Maybe
and then,
he was just having a bit of banter.
No. But then Tommy once, when I was literally asleep and he was watching the OJ trial and he like hovered over my bed with some whiskey and he's like, this is a great like documentary, you should watch this. And
then he put the glove on.
Oh no, I was like, I literally was like one code away from telling my friend to like get me out of here because
You felt intimidated. So I know we can laugh, but it sounds quite funny. But in hindsight, for you, was it an intimidating behaviour?
It was tripping me out. I was like, what is going on? And then I just started to feel really, really like just on edge. And like when his car would approach, I just wanted to like, I'd go out to walk the dog and I'd go out for a very long time just to be out in public. So that like if he wanted to come find me, would be within a public space. But then I started like watching TED Talks and feeling down. And I'm not really one to be depressed or like feel really low. And at one point when I thought, like, what's the point of this all? And I had like a split second of suicidal ideation, I quickly Googled like a TED Talk. And then I was like, something came up and then I Googled like types of abuse. And I realized there's emotional abuse, psychological abuse, financial abuse, all of these things. And why I'm feeling the way I'm feeling. And it's like, finally, is this what this person's saying? Are they gaslighting you? I didn't know what these words were. I had no clue. And then I thought, shit, there was like a checklist. Like, is this is happening to you? And
do they take on characters from films?
Yeah, they missed out that bit. But like, yeah, personality issues, like this flipping and not remembering what you're saying. Or it got to the point where I had to start recording what he was saying because he would like outright deny it and make you think you're going crazy.
Okay, he's playing games with you.
Yeah. So when you have to start recording somebody, you know things are beyond repair.
Okay, and this is when you're. Are you practicing at this time still, at this age? When you're married to him, obviously you've had an Islamic marriage, or you've had a big marriage, but you're, is he going mosque? Is he religious? Is he talking about religion at all at home?
No, pretty liberal. His parents were. Okay. His sister was as well. And again, you're in Dubai, so we all observe Ramadan. We all observe all the basic things anyway. But as far as like him individually going, no, he loved his booze. He loved traveling. The whole shebang. There was nothing really. But like belief-wise, I still believed in Allah, in Islam, and all of that jazz. And so did he.
How did you make the decision to leave him?
I think the decision was more made for me when my dad was coming back on business one day and I hadn't said anything, but there were a couple of people I had confided in and my best friend just took the initiative because she called up. I think my dad was weirded out that I wasn't answering his calls because I had planned to leave, but I had to try and get like my money, get my jewelry, get all my possessions that I wanted to take with me because obviously I didn't want him to know that I was leaving. So I had planned my escape and I didn't even want to tell my dad. I just said to my dad, I'll meet you for lunch tomorrow.
If shit's bad, if he's just going to come home, you're gone.
I know, but I would like.
I mean, the level of where you're at is, I need out of here.
Yeah. Again, though, I wasn't planning to do it that night.
No.
So I had a plan in place, and I thought I was just going to go and see my dad. But my dad, I got the inkling that something was off, and then he was like, "Nuriyah's not answering my calls." And I think my best friend explained to him what was happening, and he said, "Tell her to just get her passport and leave now." And my friend just came and picked me up, and yeah, we got out of there. And then obviously my dad was like, why didn't you tell me?
Yeah, why didn't you tell me?
Shame, culture, honor, guilt. Again, I'm the
You
first
felt that because
person.
as a Muslim woman, they're not meant to have a divorce?
Yeah, it's the last resort. You're taught to be patient. You're taught to make it work, deal with whatever cards you're dealt. So like I pushed him to maybe go get therapy when I realized like, if that's no way going to work, and whatever condition he might have, it's like a long-term thing, and I'm not living my life dealing with this. But yeah, it's I am the first woman in my family to get divorced, even in like my immediate family. So I just felt like, yeah, there was that.
You're lucky you didn't have children.
I know. Even the
Did he push you for children?
No, actually, because he had just realized what traveling meant. Because again,
So
with
he's
the
loving his
passport that
jolly
he
up.
held, he couldn't really travel the world. But then when he was traveling with me, I showed him all of Europe, and I showed him a lot of the world, and he was on that hype.
Okay. Okay, so you've got divorced. You've run off, have you? So you've left home and gone where?
I just went back to my parents' house in Dubai.
Dubai?
Yeah, and I got a job, and I actually got a job that I really, really enjoyed. So I was really living a nice life.
What was the job doing?
It was working for a Swedish startup that connects like international students with universities and makes like the partnerships. So I came to the UK and I toured all the universities. It was awesome. And
involved in the uni life still?
Huh?
When you was touring, was you still getting involved in the uni life?
No.
No.
No. Actually, I'd go at really dead times. There wasn't there wasn't much.
Because I just thought that sounded like a great tour.
Yeah. It would be actually if there was more nights like that. Liverpool, I did. Liverpool was fun.
Great city.
Yeah, great city.
Okay. So then you're doing your new job.
Yeah.
You're what, 24?
Yeah, exactly. Okay. And everyone's like my similar age, and it was like great bunch of colleagues. So again, like
Living where? Still in Dubai?
At my parents, in Dubai. And like again, I think England was playing, the World Cup was on, so we would have nights out watching the football. But he obviously now is like amping things up because I haven't got the divorce yet. My parents just said we'll talk to his parents and we'll figure this like separation out like civilly, amicably, without the courts. And then he started following me, started finding out my new place of work. He hired someone to watch me at my house. I had to like sneak through the back door. I need to like call Ubers. My life was getting like I felt like I was being watched all the time, and it was getting like unsafe for me to just, be escorted not be escorted somewhere. And then my parents weren't in the...
How was that for a young woman?
That was crazy. I had like one of my friends come and stay with me because my parents were like here in the UK. And he would send things to my house, like really intimidating, weird things, like either like delivery drivers with like really weird notes attached with some food, or like, in Islam, they use black magic, and they kind of like think that because I've left, there's something wrong with me, or that they can use black magic to bring me back. Sometimes I would wake up and there would be like just absolute shit just chucked outside my villa. And like, I would like, some people who would believe it would be like, don't step on it, like walk around it. But I'm like just trying to go to work and I'm dealing with all of this. And I went to the police in Dubai over and over again. And I said, this is a situation. He's literally watching my room window. He's following me to work. He's sending me flowers and gifts up to my office. Like, again, creating such a scene. And the police officer said, okay, install a camera. The next time he comes and does something, we'll catch it. So I installed cameras, did everything. Again, footage very sketchy because sometimes I don't know how he would like come from the back and leave something else somewhere else, or he would get someone else to do it. And then I realized the police aren't really doing anything. They don't care. And then I went over and over again to like say I need to collect the rest of my stuff from my house, like some of my belongings that his family have kept onto. And again, they flipped that, and then he said that I was guilty of theft. So they put a theft charge on me for me wanting to go and collect my belongings. And I was like, why is the police twisting everything this way? And obviously he had like paid them, and he was there every day.
Would he need to pay them, or would it just be that he's the man, you're the woman, you're in an Islamic country?
There is that element, but he was hanging around this police station and making sure because he was making sure that my life would be made hell anyway. But then it got really bad. Like when the police started asking me for my passport for these like charges, I don't need to hand over my passport. But when they realized like I'm actually going to go ahead and get a divorce because screw this amicable stuff, the Dubai police called me and said that there is a charge against me for disobeying my husband, which is called Ta'a Zawjiyya in Arabic, which is a Sharia law, and I need to return to his house. Otherwise, they will arrest me forcibly and take me back home, and I can't leave without his permission.
That's in Dubai. Just for all you fuckers who keep bigging the place up. Yeah?
That's in Dubai.
That's in Dubai. Yeah? For the great place of Dubai. It winds me up how I see people big up how it is when I still know what's going on there in certain aspects to women.
Yeah.
In lots of issues. Okay, and they've I'm guessing you run.
I ran back to my house and I was like, Mom, Dad, this is what's up. And they were like, no way. And I was like, yeah, I thought no way as well, but it is possible in this country. And my dad's like, there is no way any judge or anyone or any court of law could send you back there.
Sharia court
Not
can.
on my. And that's exactly what I said. I said, apparently,
Dad, you know that
Sharia
religion,
law can.
That religion we follow.
apparently it's fucked.
Source says this.
Exactly. And where does that come from? The Quranic verse about
Quranic?
if you merely fear disobedience, obviously me leaving him and leaving the house is mad disobedience. So yeah, that was put on me, and I was like, shoot, now things are very, very serious. So this, I stayed like away as much as I could.
How long is this going on, from you leaving him to not getting divorced? How long is the period of leaving him to divorce?
This is a good year and a half.
Oh, wow.
Good year and a half.
Okay.
And Ramadan came along and he would stall the process. And I would keep saying, so I was just buying time. Every time they would call me, I would say, I'll come with my passport. I'll come. And I just kept like, my lawyer's trying to do her stuff at the same time. And also I would make use of their laws. In Dubai, a policeman can't take you to the police station after, I think it's 6 p.m. Without a female escort or something like that. So
Okay.
I would refuse. They came to my house to try and get me. And I said, I'm sorry, my dad's not here. And he's my mahram in Islam. He's like your guardian.
Yeah.
You can't take me to the police station. There's not a woman. They got 4 men to come and take me to charge me with adultery or something. And I said, there's no woman here, so I can't come. Again, I saved myself from that situation.
I'm glad we're talking about this, because I'm totally getting onto your mindset of leaving Islam. So you're awaiting arrest. What happens? How does that end?
So I was about to give in. I was ready to cave. I parked outside the police station.
When you say give in, go to the police station and get forcefully taken to this lunatic.
Yeah, I say, well, at least here's my passport. What do you want?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So I was just about to go. My lawyer was in there, and I'm deflated at this point. I've had months and months of harassment. All these men being
This must
sick.
have ruined your couple of years of your life.
Yeah, absolutely. A great job, I was on like high alert. I probably aged 10 years in that time, but again, just sitting in this police station with all these like UAE policemen. Also, I was respectful. I wore an abaya. I hid any tattoos that I had. I was, they were just misogynistic, horrible, flirting, not writing down what I'm saying, but just very, very weird way of thinking that, like, why do you want a divorce though? Okay, who will you marry after? I'm like, what are you saying?
Well, I'm single.
Yeah, literally the state of the police. So anyway, Tommy, last ditch attempt. I make a call to the emergency number for British expats in Dubai. It was my last hope, because I know in Dubai, if you hand over your passport, your number, they don't know. And I needed like at least the British consulate or someone to know, hey, this is where they've taken Nuriyah, this is what they've done, or this is what they're charging her with. Like, someone should be aware. So I called and this guy answered, and I just gave him like a 30-second rundown.
Get your ass here.
I'm like, yeah, he literally said, you got your passport in your hand? I was like, yeah. He's like, do not, just put your foot down and make your way to the airport where these stupid charges don't apply. And my lawyer at the very same time ran in, and she's like, get out of here. They're trying to charge you with the highest level of things, and like they're going to make your life miserable. She's like, forget the divorce. That's the first time I heard her say, because she was trying to fight for me and say, we'll get you divorced. That's the first time I heard her say, forget the divorce, just get out of here. Get out of here, yeah.
God, so you had to flee Dubai. Went to the airport and flew back to UK?
Actually, thank God, one of my colleagues was booked a flight, and she was so clever. She's like, I'm not going to send you via Muscat in Oman, because even they might return you. Because Dubai was going to put a travel ban on me because I hadn't given my passport to the police. So every time I went through the airport, like with my Emirates ID, I was like so scared when the alarm would go off.
Waiting, yeah.
Yeah, and then I got on the flight to Baku. So came
Where's
by
Baku?
Azerbaijan.
Okay.
Oh my God, Tommy, like it was so, when I got to the airport, when they scanned my passport, the alarm went off, and I was like, that's it. The police are gonna come get me.
And put you back.
Yeah, and then the woman was like, I was like, what's wrong? Can I get on the plane? At least that's like more international territory. And she was like, oh, I'm sorry. And then I was like, what? And she's like, is it okay if you get moved to the front of the plane? And I was like, shoot, they're gonna come get me because they won't make a scene. They can arrest me from the front. And I was like, yeah, I was so just wanting to get on the plane and get off Dubai airport territory. I was like, yeah, sure, put me in the front. Got in the front and realized I'd been upgraded to business class. She put a white cloth on me, gave me some champagne. And my mom's like, are the wheels off the runway? Are the wheels off the runway?
And a glass of champagne, mum.
Bye, Dubai.
Fuck him.
Peace out.
What? This is just your story of your instant of trying to flee an abusive partner and the struggle of it. How many women do you think this has happened to in countries like Dubai?
So many. And they don't have the luxury that I had of like...
You had the British family, you had the British passport.
Exactly.
If you didn't have the British passport, where would you be now?
Yeah, in a parallel world, absolutely.
And that's in Dubai.
Yeah, at the behest of this. And that's the reason I decided to like speak up as well, because basic things that I now in hindsight realize could have saved me, having a divorce clause added to my Islamic marriage, which by default isn't really there.
Because the majority of Muslims in the UK don't get a British marriage. They get an Islamic marriage just done in their mosque.
Yeah.
Which is what the argument comes in now for an aspect of Sharia law, which Muslims are arguing for an aspect of Sharia law so that they can undo that marriage, no?
Yeah.
In the UK. Okay, so you've legged it to the UK. You land in the UK. Is this your moment of questioning your faith or not?
Yeah.
Was this the thing that made you question Islam and question everything around it, or was this a pathway there?
So I came back, processed everything that I had just been through.
Where did you stay when you come back?
With my grandparents.
With your granddad?
Yeah.
Local imam?
Yeah.
What did he say? What was his opinion
of
you legging it from your husband?
They were, I think my dad had given them a talk to say, listen, she's gone through some stuff. Just whatever you think and whatever, just don't put it on her right now. Just leave her alone. And I think that's what they gave me enough space to just kind of think and heal and whatever. So I was writing, I got therapy, amazing therapy.
Did you have to leave? You've left your job then? You've left your life?
The job was, they were so nice, the company I was working for in Dubai, they would see me leave work and go to court and put an abaya on and come back stressed. They would see me go through this. My manager was like, when I flew to London, he was like, do what you got to do for your safety. It's not a problem. And they were so flexible, and I really do appreciate.
Western company.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Okay.
But then I started writing, and I was like trying to understand what had happened to me, and then I thought, how do I tell my story, like what's happened, and how can I?
How old are you at this point?
25, 20,
okay,
20.
6 years ago.
Yeah. So I was like, how am I going to defend this, especially here? Like when I tell people what happened, they'll be like, oh, that's what happens in Muslim countries, to women. And I was trying to make sense of how they've used something that they can consider Islamic against me, because I thought maybe this is just men abusing their power, because I was still a believer deep down. I thought this is just men being, on a power trip. And then obviously, finally, I had access to a free internet. I didn't need to use VPN. I could access Islamic sources. I started thinking, how do I defend Sharia against me? And I thought, if this is God's law, surely it's come from the Quran itself, because I'd studied Islamic law at university, so I knew Sharia was derived from the Quran itself. And so I thought, let me read again, I'd studied law, right? So I was like, let me read how they could take that from the Quran and put that law on me. And then it was the first time, Tommy, I actually read the Quran in English as an adult. Not in just like to be mystified, but to be like, from like a critical mind. So what's God saying? What the hell is God ordering? And as soon as I read it, I was like, oh, I get it. Even I could do that to me using that verse. Of course, it makes sense.
What did you realise then? How the law was there to be manipulated, or how the Islamic law was just oppressive on women? Which was, as you're understanding this?
It's disgustingly oppressive towards women, and it's so vague that it will allow for, it's all encompassing. Like it's a catch-all for women. You're oppressed, there's no way out, and all of these things, like what was put on me, is justified very much so by the guy himself. Because the Quran is Sharia's divine law, right? So it comes from that, and then I looked into discussions about what was specifically on me, da'a zawjiyya, like disobedience of the wife, where it comes from. And in Egypt and Tunisia, they've had these discussions, like when there's like an Islamic ruling.
Scholarly discussions.
Yeah, like ijma and a consensus on what disobedience means and entails. So this was quite...
What does it mean? Anything?
Literally
basically.
Answering back, not looking at you properly, anything.
Anything. So anything covers disobedience and you must be punished.
And remember, it's merely fear. It doesn't even have, the act doesn't even have to have taken place.
He has a fear of disobedience.
Yeah,
So you might disobey him.
Yeah, and
so
you could
then
be paranoid.
he has the legitimate...
Yeah. Oh, he's paranoid. He's got a feeling you might disobey him. That's enough.
You're 25, 26. You've grown up as a Muslim. You've practiced Islam. You've previously worn the hijab. Your parents, granddad runs a mosque. And here you are now questioning everything.
Yeah.
How's that? As in, for you, when you're looking at this and you're thinking you disagree with it strongly, that must be a bit of you've lived 25 years of a lie.
That's exactly it.
How
yeah.
do you want to accept it?
Yeah. Well, so after that, to try and save it, you know, like the last ditch attempts to be like, surely, like there is something that will
Justify,
make this redundant somehow or balance out.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, if this is Allah, which is ridiculous, Allah can't mess up. But if this was Allah messing up or giving the room for this to happen in the Quran, surely Muhammad maybe must have come and, you know, just fix this up a little bit to save women or protect women a bit more. And then I went to the Hadith, and I like you were saying, I was flabbergasted. I felt sick. I was shocked. I felt betrayed, I felt lied to, and I was in my other grandma's house, and in front of me there was an Allah sign and a Muhammad sign, and I just remember like looking up and thinking, this will never, ever be the same. And then automatically you feel like you're in the Truman Show because everyone around you is immersed in this, and you've realized what this could be. So I remember for the first time searching, is Islam the truth on the internet? And then I woke up to this world of like, ex-Muslims in North America, Council of Ex-Muslims Britain, there's people speaking out. But the only time I'd ever heard of somebody leave Islam was at university, outside my Islamic law module, when this guy said to me, I was Muslim, but I left. And I thought he was crazy. I literally was like, what's wrong with you? Who leaves? And I'd never come across that again. I couldn't even convey that you, like fathom the fact that you could leave. I didn't think that was an option.
It's not an option.
It's not an option, technically, yeah. That's true. It's absolutely not, yeah.
How much of us, because look, I'm just thinking of you here personally. You've fled Dubai, you've left your job, you've left your husband, and here you are now leaving your religion. As a young woman, how alone did you feel?
It's quite isolating, like within a family dynamic especially, because when you leave Islam, everything, like a lot crumbles with it, right? So a lot of like your predisposed notions towards like people that Islam tells you to hate, for example, that you naturally didn't really feel hate for, but you held on to some hate because Islam told you to. So all of these things are dropping away, which means your worldview is changing, your moral compass is changing, but everybody around you is still very much, you know, in this bubble, and you feel like a walking zombie amongst them. But thankfully, that's where like Twitter at the time came in very, very handy, because I realized there were people out there saying their piece, and YouTube videos saved my life, because I was like, I'm not alone, and I'm not crazy. Because in that moment you think, am I the only one that realized Islam is absolute sham? It's a con. And he's been conning people for 1400 years, but people spend their lives dedicated, they live and die within this con. That's wild to me. And am I the only person that's like stepped outside of the matrix? You do feel that for a while. And I think that's why it's so important to like know that there's ex-Muslims out there. This is a thing, we exist. It's not crazy to have these thoughts, and there's a community.
Do you mind if I ask, at that time, were there any pivotal ex-Muslims that you listened to? Was there any pivotal YouTubers that you were listening to that helped you?
So for me, because I was so adamant and living in the Middle East, I knew that like, if I leave Islam, I'm not gonna, and this is so bad again, because this is what Islam says, Arabic, and you should speak Arabic and all of that. I only gave credence to Arabic speaking YouTubers who were talking about Islam. So I listened to Sharif Gabber, who's an Egyptian ex-Muslim, still in Egypt, I believe, in a precarious situation. And I listened to the Masked Arab, who has like videos of how jihad and ISIS and all these things come directly from the scripture. That was enough for me. I don't know why, I just needed that reassurance that an Arabic speaker is also saying what I'm saying.
He gets it, yeah.
If he gets it, then I'm not crazy.
He's not misinterpreting the Quran.
Exactly. But then obviously, and then Apostate Prophet, Haris Sultan, all of these people who were like, you know, crucial in being like, I guess some of the most prominent voices out there first to be like, it's okay. And tackling like the strong ones, like tackling the Muhammad hijabs, Ali Dawa, Pakistani Muslims who are insanely fanatical. So I guess there was enough like power in numbers.
How do you sit your dad down and tell him, or your granddad?
My granddad, I don't, thankfully. So I don't have to, he's got dementia now.
Okay.
My father, I did not plan to tell him. He saw my Twitter, at the time it was called Twitter, he saw my Twitter bio, And
what was saying ex-Muslim? Dad's just looked on and saw ex-Muslim.
Yeah.
What the fuck's happening?
Literally, it was in passing. He just stopped me. I was walking upstairs and he's like, so what, you ex-Muslim now? And I was like, all right, so we're doing this here then. I was like, yeah. And he's like, but why ex-Muslim? And I was like, I need to use that label just if it's for a particular purpose. It serves a purpose right now. And you might not like it, but I must use it. And then...
Why? Did you try and say, give him an excuse for why you're using it?
Yeah.
Or did you just outright say, I've left, it's bullshit? Or was you...
I said there's more of us and we need to use this term because this is something that needs to be normalized. And I wasn't really given much pushback on it, thankfully, because I think they've raised us to be curious and educated. And my mum always says to my dad, like, this is her. So I think when he tries to not stop me, but discourage me from speaking out, it's more from a safety perspective. They are really, really worried. Like, even when I traipse around London, like, I can see the stress on their face when I leave to go and speak at, like, you know, some event related to Islam or whatever. But my mother always says, this is her exercising her free speech, so you got to let it.
So your mum and dad are, would you say they're a rarity from a Pakistani family?
Every single Pakistani I've met says my parents are an anomaly. They are, wow, like, how do you have parents like this?
Because other parents would possibly kill you.
Yeah. At least disown you, maybe shun you, blackmail you, emotionally manipulate you.
When we talk about ex-Muslim, where we are here, it's a village 5 minutes down that way, and I was walking past, this is going up to probably 10 years ago, and I walked past and this Asian woman stopped me outside the shop and she said, oh my God, Tommy, oh my God, she said, please come to my house. I'm thinking, what? Oh, this is weird. Please come to my house. When I went to her house, and she said, please, let me just talk to you. Come to, I only live there. So I went to her house. She's been hiding there for like 7 years. She's only from Hempstead. Yeah? She'd been hiding there because she left Islam. And I met her boyfriend, who was an English lad. I met him and he said, we've watched all your videos, we've been watching everything. This was at the time of the English Defence League. And she spoke to me about her life as an ex-Muslim in hiding, yeah, because she believes her brothers and her family would murder her.
Wow.
Yeah? How do we, what's your opinion as an ex-Muslim? You've obviously met a lot of ex-Muslims in the UK. There's no organised get out for them. There's no, you know, if you want to leave a far right group, there's all these heavily funded organisations who will come in and help you leave that organisation.
Yeah.
If you want to leave a gang, there's massively funded organisations that support you through that process, that help you move to safe houses. If you're a Muslim and you're sitting there in a densely populated Muslim community that's extreme, and you want to express your freedom in Great Britain, how does one do that? Do you know of any groups that help? Do you know if there's any government funded help to leave Islam policies that would fund and support safe houses for ex-Muslims?
Not that I'm aware of that, you know, specifically cater to that at all. I think it's far from that. I think actually we need to flip our services, because at the moment, I mean, I don't know, at the minute I wouldn't even feel safe reporting to the police that I've potentially left Islam. If, you know, who knows what kind of police officer you've got, what his thoughts are, all of that kind of jazz. But I guess the Council of Ex-Muslims Britain is an organisation that I felt like there's one, I guess, institution here that is set up with that in the title. And if you look at the website, Tommy, there's thousands and thousands of people who have signed up to it. But that's
safer, because they need safer.
Yeah, we have no
safe houses, they need
place.
protection, they need hiding. If they want to leave, if there's women out there watching this, young Muslim girls sitting in a household who are scared, how do they leave?
That's the thing, and the police are...
I know that what you're doing is very brave. You're putting your face out there. You're telling your story, which hopefully inspires other people to search for their own freedoms. But in a real world that we're in, you are risking your life.
Yeah. And there's no real... I mean, I say theoretically I'm safe in this country, but really the police are reactive, right, as opposed to proactive. So no matter what's happening, no matter the amount of threats, death threats that any of us, like activists or people, receive, the police are just like, okay, cool, well, we can't really do anything until something's happened to you. So really you're just sitting ducks for if something was to ever happen to you, because there's no mechanisms to safeguard you in the interim. It's more of a free-for-all, and obviously
should the ex-Muslim Council, should there be some organised effort by ex-Muslims to create a charity that funds these people? I just think that it's drastic that there's probably a lot of people wanting to leave Islam and aren't free to. I'm free to because of the isolation from the family, which is a problem. Would I want to leave something that would mean my whole family will never talk to me again? It'd be devastating. It would break my family. I think you've been quite lucky by the sounds of your mum and dad.
Yeah.
I still talk to you.
Yeah.
About your brothers and sisters?
Yeah, we get on very, very well. And I think
That's
my
good.
leaving as well has obviously affected them. It does have ramifications in a tight-knit family. So yeah, I'd say a couple of them are very much veering towards
Leaving as
being
well.
on their way out. Yeah.
That's it, go on. You're the domino.
Boom, one generation
Hit the domino.
saved. Yes.
Hit that domino. Okay, now that's one thing. I think that as ex-Muslims, there must be, someone has to create some sort of network of safety houses and of funding that helps people in Britain have freedom.
Yeah, and I think if the government recognised
The
this...
government should.
Yeah.
This is a government issue. This
Yeah.
is a government issue from ladies like yourself. They should be supportive because how many have been killed? I don't know if you read the story yesterday, just in Sweden, the young girl who was pregnant. Did you read it?
No.
No, her Somali boyfriend just strangled her to death through honour because she wasn't a Muslim. But I've always spoke about Muslims attacking non-Muslim women. Yeah? There was a girl, I hope you don't mind me naming her, will I name her? But there's a girl who was going out with a Pakistani in Luton, a white girl. She ended up living with him in his house. She used to wear the full niqab, yeah? Beautiful girl as well. She used to wear the full niqab. She ended up getting about 8 years for heroin. They all did. And when Lee Rigby got killed, she contacted me and said, Tom, yeah, we're yaks, yeah, because I've grown up with her. She said, I need to speak out. I said, okay. And I went to meet her and she wanted to speak out for the Pakistani women. She said, what you don't get, yaks, you see in every house, there's a woman there with no passport. Yeah? So she was telling me the story of Luton. Like she was his wife,
Yeah.
my friend, the girl I know, yeah? She's gone on to have a great life now, yeah? But the best thing that happened was getting done for heroin, madly. But she was, he used to batter her in one room and then walk in and beat the Pakistani woman. The difference is the Pakistani woman didn't have a passport, couldn't speak English.
Yeah.
So he told the story, she told me the story of how many women are in these houses in towns like Luton who are Muslim girls, brought up as Muslim and stuck in this country and stuck in a life of slavery, who there's no help for. Would you, in your knowledge, growing up, probably you've been abroad, but are you in any knowledge that there's Muslim women being treated in this way in the UK that don't have a get out for help either because of the honour, because of the danger?
Yeah, absolutely. I actually work in the DV sector. So
You work in what?
The domestic violence sector.
Okay.
And the amount of, as you were saying, cases which come in for obviously domestic abuse, but the overlap with the amount of referrals I do to the NRM, the National Referral Mechanism for Modern Slavery, is insane because some of these women, again, they actually want to bring them from Pakistan itself because they know that they're not going to be able to get by here. So some of these women I speak to have been here for 1.5 years. Tommy, they've been sleeping in like what you would call like a little storage room. Okay, literally brought here to be for domestic servitude. There's no marriage, there's no love, there's none of that involved. They don't even. I'd ask these women sometimes, like where, especially if they call us when the perpetrator's out, so they're trying to plan an escape, and just little things like, can you get to the nearest police station? Can you get to your nearest bus stop? You take the 85 bus to here. They don't know how to read the signs or how to, do anything, and some of them are completely fall through the cracks. It's only the ones that get spotted or seen, or they've got a friend that takes control and calls a number or something that we're able to help them. But yeah, this is happening across the board.
What we're talking about here is the women, from your experience in the domestic abuse, are we talking about Muslim households?
Absolutely, yes,
Okay.
yes. And especially situations when the man has quoted the Quran while beating her. And you would think that that's enough for the woman to, once she's left him, question the religion. But a lot of the ones I work with tend to go more religious and think that that's just a him problem.
Why do you think that is?
Sorry?
Why do you think that is?
I think it's what, like the need for Islam, and that need for hope, especially after what they've been through. They, again, and I don't nobody reads it with the mind to be put off. So if a man is quoting that, he's literally verbatim quoting the Quran to you while he's beating you. In my mind, how would you stay after that? But the way that they twist and turn it or make excuses for it, it's because the power of faith is insane.
You say the power of faith there, and is it a real thing that I take from this is you were 25, 26, you're very educated, you're a smart lady. Your granddad was an imam, but at the age of 26, you had no idea what Islam was.
Yeah.
How many Muslims are there? Because I sit down, my mates, two Afghani boys I went to school with, I remember sitting down next to him and I was in Luton Court and he sat down and he goes, Yaks, I don't think it's as bad as what you say. I said, you don't think, but what do you know? Like, seriously, what do you know?
Yeah,
he said, I don't know anything, Prof. I don't know anything. I said, but you're willing to defend it. Like, I find it mad, yeah? So in your experience, you've got to 26, as I said, you're a very intelligent girl. Your granddad's an imam, you've lived in Saudi, but you had no knowledge, true knowledge of the agenda, shall I say, of Islam. How many other Muslims are there out there, do you think, in this country especially, who are blindly defending something they have little knowledge about? How many? Because most people think, well, they know everything about their religion because they're Muslim. You got 26, didn't know really much.
Yeah.
And you're from a very strong conservative background. So how many Muslims out there, in your opinion, do you think are just defending this without the knowledge of what it is?
So many, Tommy. I would say everyone that probably calls themselves a moderate or liberal, they probably don't unless you're calling yourself liberal because you consciously decided to, want that term because you don't want to be extreme. Moderates genuinely, I would say, don't know. Like, I would say my own family don't know, to be honest, the depths of it. As you said, I did not know.
You went down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the case for most people. So you do blindly defend it because even Islam TV and stuff that gets broadcast here on Sky, I've been dealing with it during Ramadan, and I can see how they cherry pick hadiths to show Muslims that, like, just nice little things here and there. You never talk about, what Muhammad's done when he's gone into battle or the other, ills of his personal life, and that's really morally questionable. They never show any of that. And as you said, you're right. I went through the whole system of being brought up as a Muslim, not knowing basic facts of Islam, even how it was spread.
By the sword.
Yeah.
How else is it spread? Just like, can I ask your opinion? You've been around the world, you obviously now studied Islam, have you? You've gone through the life of Muhammad, knowledgeable one.
The basic, enough to put me off.
Okay. What's your opinion on the migration situation into the UK? Our immigration situation, these men that are travelling here, are they travelling here for safety? Can there, under Islam, be another aspect of migration? I've seen some people saying that Muslims are travelling to other countries to spread Islam. Is that a concept in Islam?
Yeah, so without fear-mongering, obviously, jihad takes on so many forms. Jihad is like whether you're trying to work your way up in a system within the country that you're in, whether you're doing immigration jihad, whether you're increasing the birth rates of your population, that's also a form of jihad. And I'm honestly not trying to fearmonger, but this is how the Islamic ideology works, that there's jihad on various fronts. I'm sure you're aware, Tommy, people do jihad, using drugs as well.
Chemical jihad.
Chemical jihad, economic jihad.
I spoke about this 2004, man. A Luton gang called the Gambinos who were pumping heroin to non-Muslims.
Exactly.
It's aimed at non-Muslims and it's about the destruction of the non-Muslims.
Yeah.
That's chemical jihad.
Exactly.
So yeah, I'm aware of it. I just want these people who are listening to you, who with your knowledge of and your life experience, because can immigration be jihad?
So the reason I say it could is because in the context of Islam, it's Islam versus the non-Islamic world, always, until you have a caliphate or,
Can you explain that to people? So House of War, House of God, you're talking about?
Yes.
Just explain, what is the House of War, what's the House of God, what are the words for it?
So Dar al-Islam is the House of Islam, Dar al-Harb is the House of War. Those two are in perpetual, war, loggerheads with each other, because Islam is an ideology which aims for the complete I guess, unification of a Muslim ummah under a caliphate. And the West, the UK, America, Israel, any non-Islamic country is obviously against that happening. So there's levels of how you would try and make that a possibility and make that a reality. And obviously Islam and jihad is one of the most fundamental aspects of spreading Islam. And then you break it down onto a societal level. Is this personal jihad? Is it something you're doing in your personal life? Is it economic jihad? Is it jihad via migration? Is it jihad by birth rates? All of these factors come into play, and you see that with the dawah gangs here, and even some of the Islamic commentators. They're not, even if they're speaking, if you read between the lines, they're not accepting the law of the land here. They happily say, shame on the British police, shame on this, shame on that. They're not hiding the fact that Islam should dominate, their way of life should dominate and be.
No, they're very open.
Yeah, exactly.
How aren't our politicians listening to them?
Exactly.
When we have House of War, House of God, just so people understand, that's not us that have chose those terms. That's Islamic.
That's Islamic, yeah.
So Islamic's teachings is you have the House of War, which is the non-Islamic house, and the House of God, which is the Islamic house.
Yeah.
And I get this. I go onto this point from the question of the grooming gangs. Yeah, I'd like to get your opinion on it, because the verses in the Quran that state when at war, they can take non-Muslim women. So I've had Muslim commentators I've debated with, and they said, no, that's only when at war. Yeah. Well, if you've got the House of War and House of God,
yeah,
and we're in the House of War, you are at war. And all a Muslim, and maybe they don't, but all a Muslim has to do to justify his actions in Rochdale, Rotherham, or one of those cities, all he has to do to justify it amongst the community and family is, we're at war. This is a non-Muslim country. We do what we want. What's your view on the grooming scandal? And when did you become knowledgeable? When did you know about it?
Honestly, because when it was all happening, I was out of the country, and it's only recently, since leaving Islam and then realizing the police failures, because obviously I work in the domestic violence sector now, so violence against women and girls is, it really matters to me now in this country. And that was one I looked into, because the rampant police failings, the things that these girls were told by the police when they were actually reporting it. I read verbatim what the police's response were in terms of oh, that girl was a lost cause anyway, she's a druggie, or this girl had a low bar for men, or this girl liked hanging around Asian men anyway, she bought it on herself.
Willing prostitute,
words like that were used. I would say it's definitely one of the biggest police failings in our time to protect these women. And if you listen to the stories of the victim survivors of that, they actually say this is beyond just even rape gangs and stuff. This is grooming, but they operate like terrorist style networks to carry this out. And I've always felt, as a Muslim, even when I was a Muslim woman, I have always felt that the outlook from Muslim men towards non-Muslim women, it's shameful. It's already, and I think the Quran allows for this as well, because non-Muslim women, technically according to Islam, are fair game for you in these situations, because the Quranic verse about veiling actually says that O believing Muslims, tell your women to cover so that they are not molested or harassed. And who's not covered? The non-Muslim women, so they can be harassed and molested. And this is exactly what I say, even when, like I was talking about, swathes of immigration come in, legal immigration, the first people they prey on are these white women, so to speak, because they think, their culture allows for it. I'm sorry to say, but in their minds, they think, these are easier targets. And it's justified by their religion.
I've searched for one case to try and find a Muslim woman wearing a hijab who's been grabbed in the street and raped or assaulted, and I can't find any in the UK. Whereas, so every time we read about a woman being, there was one this week again, a woman gets dragged off the street, she's raped, by a Muslim. I just say, well, how come the only women that they're ever grabbing and assaulting and raping is non-Muslim women? How come no Muslim women, and then Muslims would argue, well, because our women aren't out at night, our women aren't walking the streets. We'll just say it's more that with the outlook you've seen of their view of non-Muslim women, have you personally seen that growing up from Muslim men, a negative view of non-Muslim women?
Yeah, I see it even within, close-knit circles of, let's say the previous generation, knowing they could have girlfriends or whatever, but they would always have to marry a Muslim woman. So everything else before that is just kind of, it's not taken with the same severity and respect that, like, you know, a human should be given. And I think there is some context, like, of the religion behind that. But I did look into it as well, because I wondered, was this predominantly their target? Because it seems so disproportionately like, you know, white English girls that they target. Like, it's like almost they're preying on these vulnerable young women. And then obviously I read there was a few examples of Asian women also being groomed and caught up in this.
Or Sikh women.
And Sikh women, exactly. Again, non-Muslim, you're right, 100%. But yeah, again, the justifications, very, very fewer Asian women, and again, they're non-Muslim, but the justification is still there because white women would be their target predominantly, and they don't shy away from that. So if we see those numbers being much, much higher, it's because there's even hadiths which talks about, like, capturing sex slaves that have blonde hair. So it's dark Islamically.
And there's the one verse in the Quran says that they're blameless.
Yeah.
For taking sexual slaves, blameless.
It's a divine right in that state.
The job you're doing now, so since leaving Islam at 25, is that when you left?
No, at 25 I started looking into it. I left by about 26, 27.
Okay. How's life changed?
It's amazing mentally, like the emancipation. I would not change that for the world. I'm so glad. Like, I know people leave Islam in their 40s and 50s. I wish I'd left it sooner, but I'm like, okay, 26 is not too bad. I've still got a lot of life ahead of me where I'm not, you know, bound by this rigid ideology and all of the bigotry and the hate and everything that comes with it. But yeah, it impacts your life. It impacts it speaking out. It impacts your relationships. As I was saying to you before, like, even being in the UK, I've had to change my way of life a lot. I keep my name off certain things. Like, you're careful of the areas you go and spend time in. You're careful of the people you hang out with. You have to take a lot of precautions, which in this day and age, it's sad that you still have to. And it's sad that there's parts of London or the UK that are completely written off, because, you know, I was driving from the Lake District back to London one day, and I passed through Bradford, and my radio, I was listening to like Kiss FM or something, and the radio actually changed to Hajj FM by itself. And I was like, and all around me, I just saw Muslims, and I was really not dressed appropriately either. And I was like, shoot, one wrong turn here and I'm stuck. I could not wait to get out of there. But yeah, it's mad.
How mad is it that as a woman, you're a British woman, and you have to take precautions, or you're fearful of precautions in Great Britain because you changed your mind? That's what it comes down to. You're a free thinker and you decided, I don't believe in this. I don't believe in this. Have you had any death threats?
Yeah, when I started speaking out, I did. And initially, like, when you're kind of a newbie in this world, the threat seems really, really like, because you feel like you're taking on the likes of, you know, ISIS, jihadis, Taliban, extremists here.
You sort of are.
You are, indeed. You've picked a fight with them. Like, I was watching a stand-up of Ricky Gervais, and he's like, yeah, I can make fun of leprechauns. I'd never make fun of terrorists, though. I wouldn't go there. And I'm like, yeah, you know, even like, this is like picking a fight with the craziest of the crazies. So initially I got a few, and that was going to put me off. And I thought, should I even do this? Is it worth it? And I remember reaching out to Mariam Namazi, who is the founder of Council of Ex-Muslims Britain. And I just messaged her about my safety. And I said, look, I'm also in London. Do you think this is worth it? Do you think it's safe enough? And she honestly like wrote back a very kind of like heartfelt email saying, you know, take your time, think about it. But if you can, by all means, like, use your voice. And I was like, yeah, I refuse to be afraid. Like you're saying, it's ridiculous. I refuse to give in to that.
Which is quite rare. What do you think is about your character that makes you refuse to be afraid? Because there's a lot of people out there who have the views we have, or have the views I have anyway, about Islam, but they're afraid, and they're not Muslim. They're not even Muslim, so they're not as in danger as you sitting here talking about it. Why do you think you're not afraid, and what message would you have to people who are afraid?
I think I'm very lucky because my also like haven't lost all my interpersonal relationships, so that
Would it be
helps.
different if you had? Would it be different if your mum and dad were that strict that they would have outcast you and you'd have been fear for them?
I think I'd go harder. I think that would have spurred me on to go harder. Yeah, I think I actually I'm very. I like to be anyway quite balanced in my approach, because I don't want whatever we got. I don't want to ruin a good thing and come too hard, and also I don't want to have myself killed tomorrow. So I pick and choose what I say when I say it. But I think it is just, honestly, Tommy, once you've realized what it is, how dark Islam is. That it can't be called a religion. It can't be just classified as some spiritual bunch of customs that you're doing between you and your God. It's literally like a political ideology. It's absolutely to the detriment of women. It ruins children's lives. It ruins everyone's lives that it comes into contact with, unless you succumb and bend to its will. And if you realize something is that big of a con and that dangerous, that generations of my family and people around me have spent their lives and died saying the Shahada as their final words before they died, that makes me sick. They've not lived life to the fullest. So I just think it's high time someone needs to speak, and just generational change needs to happen. And if one person in a Muslim family breaks the fold, like I told you, even my siblings, the knock-on effect, hopefully we can save a generation. If this is women leaving Islam, they are in charge of the next generation. If they're having children, they'll raise them free of this Islamic mindset. And I think that's reason enough for me to speak and take this risk.
I think if it wasn't punishable by death, there wouldn't be in Islam. If it wasn't punishable by death to leave, it would never have still be here.
It would be so minute, we'd probably not have to worry about it.
It wouldn't be a problem.
Yeah, we'd be like, all right, you do your thing there.
But so many people that they've used the fear so well.
Yeah.
What would you say the current situation of the UK? You're awake now to Islam. You understand what Islam is. What do? We've got 4 million minimum followers who are adhered to Islam. Believe Muhammad was perfect. What do we do?
Well, I think it's high time we do something, right? I think first thing is we acknowledge this problem. We stop beating around the bush about whether this, that this is an oppressed minority group that needs to be protected, or protected outside of the Equality Act, or given to words like Islamophobia. We need to understand that at some level, what's been happening over the last 20 years, the level it's infiltrated society, the chickens are now coming home to roost. So politicians have to grow more of a backbone. And we've got to tackle, the way that domestic violence is treated as a national emergency. Terrorism is treated as a national emergency, but radicalization should be treated. I mean, I was happy to hear my mom's a teacher, and she was saying in school now, even in primary schools, they're telling teachers to look out for the early signs of radicalization.
Yeah, they're probably looking for bloody someone mentioning Tommy Robinson.
Yeah, true. True, given the current...
That's the problem. I'm in their programmes.
Yeah,
they tried to do it at my daughter's school.
Oh my God.
Yeah, they rang up and said, look, we need to talk to you because in class this week there's going to be a class and you're sort of a subject of it.
Oh my days.
I said, what are you talking about? And I know what you're going to say.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not true.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, so do you draw a difference between, I'd love to know, Islamism?
Okay, this is a bit of a grey area for some people,
Yep.
but for me, it's pretty simple. I don't draw a distinction. I think if you're a good Muslim, your Islam should be Islamism.
You're an Islamist.
You're an Islamist.
Muhammad was an Islamist.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have this is my problem for me. I have a big problem with this because I think that what we've done is create a word that allows the cowards who aren't willing to talk about Islam then come down strong against Islamism. It's like, everything you're talking about is the core structure of Islam.
Exactly.
But you don't want to criticise Islam. You want to, it's okay now to be against Islamism.
Yeah, political Islam. I don't get it. Why do we have to say political Islam?
It's Islam.
Islam is political. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Because so many people are going down that, or have gone down that line of pushing.
Because most Muslims are better than Islam. That's why they're chilling in their houses and they're not blowing up stuff. The Muslims who are actually practicing their religion, you'll end up like Muhammad, or you should anyway. That's what you should strive for as a Muslim man.
Another underlying issue that I see coming, a big issue actually for us moving forward in this country, is as people get increasingly frustrated with the problems from Islam, they're blaming everyone. Migrants, anyone from an immigration background, like yourself. Yeah? There will be a lot of comments, there are now, ever increasing. It's quite frustrating actually, but ever increasing against all migrants. What message would you have to those people about yourself? You're a great British citizen. You've left Islam. You're speaking out. You're taking a risk. But to those people who say you're not British.
To them, I would say, I think if your values align with, I guess, what this country stands for, that's being British in itself. Like, what is being British? We can argue that till the cows come home. But I think if you are not actively working to disrupt and break down this system from within, and you're willing to, be this beautiful, cohesive, well, we should be cohesive, but a cosmopolitan, multicultural society that we are. Obviously, the UK Britain's been responsible for a lot of world history. It's tied into so many countries, historically speaking. It's political in a political sense, in a historical sense, the Commonwealth. So we are a melting pot here in the UK. And I think there is anybody that's actively seeking to work against that, sure, you can question their Britishness, but anybody who is kind of working here for the betterment of society, to protect people, to safeguard our values, which I think are shared values, I don't think we should isolate them or ostracize them because of, I don't know, whether it's racist elements or an immigrant background or what have you. And we shouldn't conflate like all illegal immigrants with, a genuine good immigrant experience. Somebody who's assimilated and somebody who has, just has, fit in well to this country and is giving back to this country. I think there's a lot of people who fit into that category and they would proudly call themselves British.
I agree. I totally agree. Can I ask you, how do we? Islam gives a solution to the LGBTQ plus mafia. Yeah? The degeneracy which we're currently seeing in society. I'm not talking about man and man falling in love or woman and woman falling in love, yeah, that's to do with man and woman and woman. I'm talking about the sexualization of children, which has now become accustomed to the rainbow flag. To me, it's been taken, hijacked, and stolen. And it's a sexualization of children. Islam answers a lot of the problems around that. A lot of people are pushing to Islam because it's very strong in its values. There's lots of people converting to Islam. A Tate, there's people who are going to Islam as they see it as a strong answer to solve the degeneracy and the problems that we as a country face as well. What would you say to that?
I say that's a car crash waiting to happen. Absolutely. Islam does not. It provides a framework, sure, of that kind of intense, as you said, strong kind of framework, which people like Andrew Tate and still a bunch of other people gravitate towards because they think other ideologies or systems are weaker. For example, they say Christianity is too weak, at least Islam stands up for itself.
Yep.
But it's in no way a solution to, and this is the thing, when people really, go towards Islam, they use that, rightly as you said, they think that, but their argument is look at how degenerate the West is, look at divorce rates.
This is a dangerous argument that's going on at the minute because it's attracting a lot of people to Islam.
Absolutely dangerous argument because you don't know you're getting into bed with another beast, and a beast that's far, far, far uglier and will take away fundamental rights of yours that, you once held sacrosanct. They're absolutely gone under Islam. So yeah, it might seem like a solution because it's more aggressive and it's the way it lays itself out, but it absolutely is not a solution. It would be chaos.
Mind if I ask your views on the Israel-Palestine conflict?
Yeah.
Do you have a strong opinion on it?
I have an opinion, obviously. I would, just like anybody else, obviously hoping for a lasting, peaceful solution. But again, leaving Islam, in my journey of unlearning that, there was a time when I blindly was in Saudi Arabia and I blindly was chanting Free Palestine and had the Free Palestine scarf, and I was part of that entire movement. And to be honest, I didn't really know why. That's what the Muslims were doing, and that's what Saudi Arabia's position was, and that's what my parents' position was. Therefore, that was my position. So having actually looked into the historical context of things a bit more, and undoing all the anti-Semitism that I naturally just had in me from being a Muslim, the Jews were to blame for a lot of things. I bought into so many conspiracies. And I feel so bad for even ever having thought this, but all the conspiracies that you hear, the most far-fetched things about Jews, a lot of Muslim families hold those to be true. They control the media, they control the banks, they're responsible for everything that's gone wrong. Again, even the popular picturizations we see of them physically, even Muslims really have a negative outlook on them. And again, this is completely from religion. So I can't detach.
Religion or land, which you say has to do, so that there, your view, the view you were brought up with of Jews, was that to do with religion or land? Religion.
So I think in this conflict, for me, it's very toxic because there's religion and land at play, and it's from both sides. But again, for me, having top UK imams as well, not outrightly condemn October 7th, just reinforced it wow, the anti-Semitism is so strong that you can't call sheer blatant terrorism and sexual violence against women what it is, and they're finding ways to
justify it.
Yeah, justify it.
Sugarcoat it.
Absolutely. I definitely do now take a more holistic approach, and I think Israel definitely has a right to defend itself. Obviously, in the best way possible to minimize casualties and safeguard innocent lives in Gaza, but Hamas is Hamas, and you read their charter, it's straight out of the Islamic textbook. Jews shouldn't exist, Israel shouldn't exist, we don't want peace until it's all, all ours.
Until they're all dead.
Yeah.
What about politically in the UK? Do you see there being a political solution to the problems we face? Do you look at who would you vote for in the next election?
I'm confused, Tommy. I'm still what is going on? Because as an ex-Muslim, firstly, when I got back here, I felt very politically homeless anyway. And my family's pretty much Labour, as expected. And then again, leaving Islam, I realized, wow, Labour is really backed by the Muslim vote bank, and there's a reason.
Not anymore, though.
Not anymore, exactly.
Not after bloody Gaza.
Exactly.
They're all rebelling,
and do you see how George Galloway jumped in to fill that void?
And now that Muslim lad in Birmingham standing as the mayor, and they're setting up their own parties, and Labour, who have hugged and kissed them for the last 20 years, is realising, oh shit.
Yes.
About to lose the Muslim vote. Mm-hmm. Yeah, sorry, I shouldn't have interrupted you then. Who will you be voting for? Who would you vote for?
So for me, again, I'm pretty much undecided at this point. I'm gonna deliberate, but I can see that issues that people have with the Tories as well. I can see how the reform is coming in to fill that void again, and they actually, from what I've seen so far, at least acknowledge and aren't afraid to vocalize a problem with Islam or migration, things like that, in a more out there approach. So yeah, we shall see. It's a big one coming up, but. Even local elections and, Sadiq Khan, Hamza Yusuf, all these people in power, which I deem to be soft Islamists of a kind, you've got to work to...
God, Lee Anderson lost his job over that comment.
You're right. Yeah, you're right. No, but London has changed under his watch, and
it's fucked.
It's absolutely, and there's no denying that.
It's destroyed it.
Absolutely.
But he's smashing it in the polls.
Yes.
This should not be a message to the whole of Great Britain. You need to cotton on, because once one of them are in, you ain't getting them out.
Yeah.
Once the demographic shifts that much, it doesn't matter what they do.
Yep.
They'll use democracy to end democracy.
Exactly. The longer he stays in power, the more London will go to the dogs.
He ain't getting out of power. He's got it, and he's laughing, and he doesn't care either. He doesn't. Is there any political figure that you see or have seen in the UK that you think can lead the country?
This is going to be so controversial to so many people, but I actually used to really not like Nigel Farage at all. Okay. And then he was humanized for me a lot more when I saw him on I'm a Celeb, Get Me Out of Here. And then I do when it comes to his viewpoints on honestly tackling the migration crisis and things like that, I think he's got a strong mind in terms of putting those things into practice. I think we're faffing around with what Rishi's trying to do. It's just this whole...
He's not doing shit.
Yeah, exactly. It's a nightmare what's been happening. So I think we do need strong leadership at the helm, but somebody who is, has got the guts to confront what we're dealing with here. I think even with, Sajid Jawed, the position he held as Home Secretary, when he dealt with Shamima Begum, in his mind, that was that was utterly the right thing to do. And he says, if you'd seen what I had seen, you wouldn't question my decision whatsoever. And whether you agree with him or not, I think that's the kind of leadership that we need, like somebody who has a strong enough mind like that. But I can't really vouch for any of these people wholeheartedly, so.
Okay. As now an ex-Muslim with 4 million followers of Islam in the UK, when people talk about reforming Islam or de-radicalisation, what's your views on that?
I think de-radicalization is a lot more realistic a proposition than reform. I'm not really keen on the reform Islam camp, just because I think practically there's a lot of obstacles to that happening. So you've got like the reformers of Islam and the reformists, and sure, they can present their own interpretations and stuff, but Islam tells you, like in the words of Christopher Hitchens, he says Islam makes like grandiose claims for itself, which it does. So the Quran is the perfect word of God. It's not even got that wiggle room or leeway like the Bible does to be inspired. It is verbatim the word of God. So how do you reform the word of God without destroying God himself or itself as a concept? So Islam doesn't really have that wiggle room, because the whole thing will crumble if you try and change something that's been fixated from that long ago and is entrenched in that 7th century Bedouin culture, but it tells you that it's an eternal, timeless, infallible, immutable ideology. So there's no scope for reform there. There's scope for Muslims reforming in terms of their behaviors and their attitudes and their mindset, which would also make them acknowledge that means we've got to, at least say that doesn't fit in this day and age, or, that's not applicable anymore. But I think de-radicalization is a process that we need to undertake in this country as like a national crisis. So
I think we should rename it, because when we talk about de-radicalization, what we're really talking about is helping people leave Islam, understand Islam.
Yeah, and yeah.
Because if you don't want them to practice the core teachings of Islam and you're trying to de-radicalize them, what you're de-radicalizing them from is the core teachings of Islam.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What about, I'll end this. I've had a fascinating chat on to a liberal secularist, someone who opposes me, who doesn't like hearing me talk openly and give words about Islam or the problems of it. What could you say to them? Because they're not convinced. The problem I have is I try and talk about these issues, and because of my history, because I've run an organisation, because I walk a certain way and talk a certain way, people don't want to accept what I'm saying. What would you say to them about the dangers from not understanding and not actually addressing the Islamic issue?
Well, I want to start by apologizing to you, Tommy, as well, because I believed the headlines about you for the longest time, and and that was like when I was younger. But having left Islam, when I saw you talk about Islam and see it for what it is in terms of a threat to this country, I feel like sometimes actually like your Islamic knowledge is pretty good as well. You can tell you've spoken to, the Salafis, the Wahhabis, the Shias, the Sunnis. You have more of an understanding than many Muslims do, I would say. But yeah, when it comes to your criticism of Islam, not Muslims, Islam,
I don't know how they still can't separate them.
I know.
Can't do it.
Exactly. So no, it's absolutely on point, and I'm grateful to you actually, because I'm grateful we could even sit down and have this conversation, because you are one of the few people that acknowledge what the potential it has to do to this country. And I think we're already past that threshold. Like, we need to start pushing back now, because we've reached that critical point. So no, voices, and again, it's sad if this is like a class thing or whatever it is, or trying to malign you for various reasons, but it doesn't mean that what you're saying on Islam is it's not applicable. It is absolutely applicable. I've heard your critiques. I've heard you listen to the apologist arguments as well and challenge them back. And I would say, as somebody who's grown up in the faith, been surrounded by it, lived in Saudi, left it, there's nothing about Islam that you're saying that is blown out of proportion. It is that much of a fundamental threat to our society, and it is that much of a dark, twisted ideology that you need to counter it constantly.
Strong finish, girl. Strong finish. Where can anyone watching this wants to follow you, follow your story, follow your development, where can they do that?
On YouTube, I have a channel called Holy Humanist. You can just search my name as well, it will come up. And on X, it's at Nuriyah K is my Twitter X handle.
Cool. Well, I've had a fascinating chat. I think we're at nearly 2 hours. I could probably just carry on talking about Islam and going down on all the aspects, but thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. It was great talking.
No, cheers.
And thank you for what you do against Islam.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. If you've watched this, if you've liked it, Share it, we're still censored, but I thank you for giving me the opportunity to sit and have these discussions. Every one of these discussions might wake one person up, two people up. Our job is to challenge people's minds and make them think, and you made that possible, so thank you.
Carry on watching for more interesting guests. I'll talk to anyone, I'll debate anyone, I'll hear anyone's story. If you want to help me along that way, it's not free, I need your support. If you can support my family, that gives me my peace of mind. It means I can continue to do the work I do. I appreciate every bit of support, as do my children. It gives me the ability to fly them out here to see me so I can stay in constant contact with them. I'm deplatformed and I'm censored, so I need you. I need you to share this content. And make sure you stay tuned for upcoming weekly guests, interesting guests, exciting guests. I'm Tom Robinson, and this has been my podcast, Silence.